I can't do this anymore, Nathan. You've cheated again. Let's just get divorced. My voice was steady, but inside I was crumbling. The living room of our modest home, once a sanctuary of love and laughter, felt cold and uninviting. Nathan stood there, his back to the fading sunset outside the window. His silhouette was as hard and unyielding as the man himself. Divorce? Really, Elise? After all this time? Nathan's voice was laced with sarcasm. He turned to face me, a smirk playing on his lips, the same lips that whispered sweet nothings and later lies. Yes, Nathan, 4 years of marriage and all I've earned are lies and betrayal. Even your parents agree with me. I felt a surge of courage, bolstered by the unexpected support from his parents. I saw their disapproving glances at their son, their sympathetic looks towards me. Nathan's face hardened. My parents? Ha! What do they know about our marriage? They know enough. My words were a whisper, but they sliced through the tension in the room. Nathan's smirk vanished, replaced by a sneer. Fine, Elise, you want a divorce? You'll get it. But remember, you're leaving with nothing. No alimony, no child support. You can take my parents and those brats with you. His words stung, but I stood my ground. I don't care about your conditions, Nathan. All I know is I can't be your wife any longer. He scoffed. You think you can survive without me? You're nothing without me, Elise. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I'd rather have nothing than live a lie with you. Nathan stepped closer, his face inches from mine. You know, being cheated on, maybe it's also the fault of the person being cheated on. Ever thought of that, Elise? His words were a slap across my face. I recoiled, not from his proximity, but from the venom in his voice. The Nathan I once knew, the man I fell in love with, was gone. In his place stood a stranger, cold and cruel. I've grown tired of your whining and your pathetic face. You know what? A good-looking divorced man is quite the catch. His voice dripped with arrogance. I stared at him, my heart racing with a mix of fear and anger. Is this really who you are, Nathan? He shrugged. Take it or leave it, Elise. I don't care. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I'm leaving, Nathan, and I'm taking our daughters with me. They don't deserve a father like you. Nathan laughed, a hollow, mocking sound. Good luck, Elise. You'll come crawling back. They always do. But I knew I wouldn't. I turned my back on Nathan, on our life together, and walked away. The door closed behind me with a finality that echoed in my heart. It was over. The battle was just beginning, but I had taken the first step towards freedom. As I walked away, I realized this was not just the end. It was a new beginning. The morning after I left Nathan, I found myself at his parents' house. The air was thick with unspoken words as I sat at their kitchen table, my twin daughters playing quietly at my feet. Mr. and Mrs. Hamilton, Nathan's parents, exchanged a glance full of sorrow and regret. Elise, we need to tell you something about Nathan, Mr. Hamilton began, his voice heavy with unease. Something we should have shared a long time ago. I nodded, bracing myself for more revelations. Nathan has always been, well, charming to women. Since high school, Mrs. Hamilton interjected, her voice trembling. He would date multiple girls, juggling them without a care. My heart sank. The man I married, the father of my children, was a habitual cheater. It wasn't just a lapse in judgment, it was a pattern. We thought he changed when he met you, Mr. Hamilton continued, his voice filled with disappointment. But we were wrong. We're so sorry, Elise. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, but mostly I felt betrayed. Not just by Nathan, but by everyone who knew and said nothing. Why didn't you tell me? The question came out as a whisper, more to myself than to them. We hoped he had changed, Mrs. Hamilton said, tears in her eyes, but we were wrong. We failed you both. The revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. Nathan's parents, whom I had come to love and respect, had kept this crucial piece of information from me. Yet their remorse was genuine. Thank you for telling me now, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But I need to think about what to do next. As I left their house, my mind was racing. Nathan's betrayal wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a part of who he was. And I had been blind to it all. In the following days, I poured my energy into my job search. With a renewed sense of purpose, I landed a position at a marketing firm. It wasn't just about financial independence. It was about reclaiming my identity. I also started gathering evidence of Nathan's infidelity. Every receipt, every late-night call, every unexplained absence. I meticulously documented everything. If Nathan thought I was going to walk away quietly, he was sorely mistaken. The final straw came a week later when I discovered another love letter in Nathan's belongings, filled with passionate declarations. It was like a punch to the gut. Confronting him wasn't an option. I needed a different approach, an approach that would hit him where it hurt the most. I called my lawyer and set the wheels in motion for the divorce. Nathan would learn the hard way that betrayal comes with a price, and I was going to make sure he paid it in full. I sat across from my lawyer, Mr. Jacobs, in his stark, unadorned office. The papers in front of me were a tangible representation of my newfound resolve. "Everything's in order," Mr. Jacobs said, adjusting his glasses. "Once Nathan is served these papers, the process begins. Are you ready for this?" I nodded, feeling a mix of apprehension and determination. "I am. Nathan needs to understand that he can't just walk over people without consequences." Mr. Jacobs gave me an understanding look. "And the evidence of his affairs?" "I have them," I replied, handing him a folder thick with documentation. Photos, messages, receipts, everything that painted the sordid picture of Nathan's betrayal. "Good. This will strengthen your case for alimony and child support. It's not just about the money, Elise. It's about holding him accountable." As I left the lawyer's office, I felt a sense of empowerment. I wasn't just a victim of Nathan's infidelity. I was a woman taking control of her life. The following weeks were a whirlwind. I juggled my new job, caring for my daughters, and the divorce proceedings. It was exhausting, but with each passing day, I felt stronger, more capable. Then came the day Nathan was served the divorce papers. His reaction was immediate and explosive. He called me, his voice dripping with anger and disbelief. "Are you out of your mind, Elise? You think you can take me to the cleaners and get away with it?" I held the phone away from my ear, his tirade a distant, angry buzz. When he finally paused for breath, I spoke calmly. "It's not about revenge, Nathan. It's about fairness. You broke our marriage vows, and now you have to face the consequences." "You won't get a dime from me," he spat. "We'll see," I replied, and ended the call. That night, I lay awake, thinking about the path ahead. It was going to be a tough battle, but I was ready for it. Nathan had underestimated me, and that was his biggest mistake. I thought about my daughters, sleeping peacefully in the next room. They deserved a better life, a life free from the shadow of their father's deceit. And I was going to give it to them, no matter what it took. Nathan's true colors were showing, and everyone was going to see them. The charming, handsome man they knew was just a facade. Underneath lay a man capable of deceit and betrayal, and I was going to expose him for who he really was. The game had just begun, and I was playing to win. The courtroom was cold and sterile, the air charged with tension. I sat rigidly, my lawyer beside me as we waited for the judge to enter. Across the room, Nathan sat with his lawyer, his expression one of smug confidence. As the judge entered and proceedings began, I felt a knot in my stomach. This was it, the moment of truth. "Nathan Taylor, the evidence presented by your wife indicates a pattern of infidelity and financial irresponsibility," the judge began, his voice stern. "How do you respond to these allegations?" Nathan stood, his posture relaxed, almost dismissive. "Your Honor, my wife is exaggerating. Sure, I might have had a few indiscretions, but who hasn't? She's blowing this whole thing out of proportion." His cavalier attitude infuriated me. He still didn't grasp the severity of his actions. "Mr. Taylor, this is a court of law, not a social club. I advise you to take these proceedings seriously," the judge warned. As the hearing progressed, Nathan's facade began to crumble. Each piece of evidence my lawyer presented seemed to hit him like a physical blow. Photos, messages, bank statements, the truth laid bare for all to see. When it was my turn to speak, I stood, my hands trembling slightly. "Your Honor, I entered this marriage believing in love and trust. What I got instead was deception and heartache. Nathan's actions have not only broken our family, but have also set a poor example for our children." Nathan rolled his eyes, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by the judge. The impact of his actions goes beyond just emotional pain. Financially, I was left in a vulnerable position, having to start from scratch while caring for our daughters. "I seek fair compensation, not out of spite, but out of necessity," I concluded, my voice steady. The judge nodded, making notes. "Thank you, Mrs. Taylor. Your statement has been noted." As the hearing ended, Nathan approached me, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "You're going to regret this, Elise. You've made an enemy out of me." I met his gaze squarely. "No, Nathan, you did that all by yourself." Leaving the courtroom, I felt a sense of closure. This was more than just a legal battle. It was a fight for my dignity and the future of my children. Nathan had shown his true colors, and now he would face the consequences. The drama was far from over, but I had taken a significant step in reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. The divorce settlement was more than just a legal victory. It was a moral one. Nathan had been ordered to pay a substantial amount in alimony and child support, a decision that left him seething. A few days after the ruling, I received a call from Nathan. His voice was a mix of anger and desperation. "You think you've won, Elise? You think you can just take my money and run? You've ruined me." His words were meant to intimidate me, but I felt an inner strength that hadn't been there before. "This isn't about winning or losing, Nathan. It's about taking responsibility. You made your choices, and now you're facing the consequences. You'll pay for this. I'll make sure of it," he threatened. "Threats won't change anything, Nathan. It's time for you to start facing reality," I replied before ending the call. In the weeks that followed, Nathan tried various tactics to evade his financial obligations. But with the law on my side and a determined lawyer, we countered each attempt. Meanwhile, word of Nathan's actions and the divorce began to spread. His reputation, once that of a charming and successful businessman, was now tarnished. He faced scrutiny and judgment from those he once considered friends and colleagues. As I rebuilt my life, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Nathan was finally experiencing the fallout of his actions. His once carefree life was now filled with the repercussions of his choices. But it wasn't just about Nathan's downfall. This was also about my rise from the ashes of a broken marriage. I was building a new life for myself and my daughters, a life free from lies and betrayal. One evening, as I put my daughters to bed, my younger daughter looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. "Mommy, are you happy now?" Her question caught me off guard, but then I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, I am. We're going to be just fine." As I kissed them goodnight, I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and in its wake, it had left a newfound strength and resilience in me. Nathan's downfall was a harsh reminder of the price of deceit, but it was also a testament to the power of standing up for oneself. I had fought for justice, not just for me, but for my children as well. The chapter of Nathan was closed, but a new chapter was beginning for us, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. The world outside my window seemed brighter, the air fresher. It had been 6 months since the divorce was finalized, and life had taken on a new rhythm. My daughters were thriving, happy and adjusted, and I had found fulfillment in my job and newfound independence. One afternoon, as I sat in my office, my phone buzzed. It was a call from Nathan. Hesitant, I answered. "Elise, you've destroyed my life." Nathan's voice was frantic, a stark contrast to his once cool demeanor. I sighed. "Nathan, you did that yourself. I just stopped accepting it." "I lost my job because of the scandal, Elise. Because of you." His voice cracked with desperation. "That was the result of your actions, Nathan, not mine," I replied firmly. "You think you're better off without me? You think you've won?" His words were laced with bitterness. "I didn't do this to win, Nathan. I did it to survive, to protect our children. This isn't a game, it's life, and it's time you took responsibility for yours." There was silence on the other end, and then he hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment, reflecting on how far I had come. In the months following the divorce, rumors of Nathan's behavior had circulated. His charming facade had crumbled, revealing the man beneath. He had lost his job, his reputation, and much of his social circle. The consequences of his actions were catching up to him. But for me, life was moving in a positive direction. I had reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and my relationship with my daughters had never been stronger. We had created a new family unit, one built on love, trust, and respect. As I left work that day, I thought about the journey I had been on, from the pain and betrayal to the fight for justice and the rebuilding of my life. It had been a difficult path, but one that led to growth and empowerment. Nathan's downfall was a harsh lesson in accountability. For me, it was a reminder that no matter how dark things seem, there is always a path to light. I picked up my daughters from school, their laughter and chatter filling the car, As we drove home, I realized that this was what true happiness felt like. It wasn't just about overcoming Nathan, it was about rediscovering myself and building a better future for my family. The road ahead was uncertain, but I faced it with a sense of hope and optimism. The chapter of Nathan was closed, but our story was just beginning. A story of resilience, strength, and the unbreakable bond of a mother and her children.
The rain pelted against the church windows as I watched my sister Freya stand at our father's casket, dabbing her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery bill. My name is Olive, and this was the day my sister stole everything from me. Daddy would have wanted the estate in capable hands, Freya announced to our small gathering of family and close friends. Her voice carried that familiar patronizing tone I'd grown to despise. As the eldest, I'll ensure our family's legacy remains intact. I gripped the wooden pew until my knuckles turned white. Just yesterday, we'd buried our father, and already she was making her move. Mom sat beside me, her grief-stricken face buried in her hands, as she nodded along to everything Freya said. Olive dear, Freya's saccharine voice cut through my thoughts. You understand, don't you? With your history of impulsive decisions, this is really for the best. The gathered mourners turned to look at me. I felt their stares burning into my skin. Remembering the rumors Freya had carefully cultivated about my supposed irresponsibility. That failed startup I'd attempted at 23. The time I'd traveled through Europe instead of immediately starting college. All twisted into weapons against me. I understand perfectly, I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. You've always had everything figured out, haven't you, Freya? She smiled, that picture-perfect smile that had fooled everyone but me. I'm so glad you see it my way. Mom's already signed over power of attorney to me. It's all very official. My head snapped toward Mom. Is this true? Mom finally looked up, her eyes red and puffy. Freya knows what she's doing, honey. She's got the business degree, the connections. Your father would have wanted, Dad would have wanted us to share everything equally, I interrupted, standing up. That's why he left it to both of us in his will. Freya's friend Callie stepped forward, placing a manicured hand on my shoulder. Olive, sweetie, maybe you should step outside and get some air. Grief can make us say such irrational things. I shrugged her hand off and walked toward the church exit. As I pushed open the heavy wooden doors, I heard Freya's voice carry across the now silent church. You're better off without it, little sister. Trust me. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by boxes I'd already packed. The estate had been in our family for generations. The mansion, the investments, the land. Dad had built it into something remarkable, and now Freya would run it all into the ground. A soft knock at my door made me look up. Mom stood there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. I'm sorry, Olive, she whispered, but Freya, she knows what she's doing. She's got everything planned out. She's manipulating you, Mom. Can't you see that? Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Mom's voice cracked. Please, I can't handle any more conflict right now. I stood up and hugged her, breathing in her familiar lavender scent. It's okay, Mom. I understand. And I did understand. Not just Mom's grief, but what I needed to do next. Freya thought she'd won, thought she'd pushed me aside like she always had. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. Again. Later that night, as I loaded the last box into my car, I heard heels clicking on the driveway behind me. Running away again, Freya called out. I knew you'd take the easy way out. I turned to face her, and for the first time in years, I felt completely calm. No, Freya, I'm not running away. I'm moving forward. She laughed, the sound echoing in the empty driveway. Forward to what? Another failed venture? Another disappointment? You know what's funny? I smiled, closing my trunk. You're so focused on what you've gained. You have no idea what you've just lost. Lost? She scoffed. I've won everything. Keep telling yourself that. I got into my car and started the engine. Through the window, I added, and Freya? Remember this moment. Remember exactly how it feels to think you've won. It'll make what comes next so much sweeter. As I drove away from my childhood home, I watched Freya's figure shrink in my rearview mirror. She thought she'd written the final chapter of our story. But she was wrong. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. And I was going to make sure she regretted every single moment of her victory. 6 months into my new life in the city, I found myself sitting across from Gregory in his downtown office, surrounded by financial reports and investment portfolios. The view of the skyline behind him seemed to mock my small-town roots, but I wasn't here to admire the scenery. "You're a quick study, Olive," Gregory said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed my latest analysis. "Most people take years to grasp these concepts." I took a sip of my coffee, hiding my smile. Most people aren't trying to save their family legacy from a manipulative sister. Speaking of which, Gregory turned his computer screen toward me. "Have you seen the latest news about your family's company?" The headline made my stomach turn. "Carter Industries announces aggressive expansion plans." Below it was a photo of Freya, wearing her signature pearls and fake smile. "She's taking out loans she can't possibly repay," I muttered, scanning the article. "The estate's cash flow won't support this kind of expansion." "Exactly." Gregory leaned back in his chair. "She's playing a dangerous game. One wrong move and—" A knock at the door interrupted us. A tall man in a crisp suit entered, his presence immediately commanding attention. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "I'm Russell O'Connor. I couldn't help overhearing. Did you say Carter Industries?" I straightened in my chair. "I did. I'm Olive." Recognition flickered across his face. "Olive Carter. I've been following your family's case, the inheritance dispute." "You could call it that," I replied carefully, though theft might be more accurate. Russell pulled up a chair, his interest piqued. "I'm a corporate lawyer. I've seen similar cases before. But yours, there's something not quite right about how it was handled." Gregory cleared his throat. "Russell's one of the best in the business, Olive. If anyone can help you build a case, it's him." I studied Russell's face, looking for any sign of the usual condescension I'd faced when telling my story. Instead, I found genuine concern and something else: determination. "Tell me everything," Russell said, pulling out a notepad. "Start with the power of attorney transfer." For the next hour, I laid out every detail, every manipulation Freya had orchestrated. Russell's pen moved rapidly across the page, occasionally stopping to ask pointed questions. "Your sister's making mistakes," he finally said, tapping his pen against the notepad. "Big ones. These expansion plans, they're reckless at best, fraudulent at worst." "Can we prove it?" I asked, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "Not yet, but we can start building a case. Gregory's been teaching you finance. That knowledge will be crucial." I glanced at my watch and stood up. "I have class in 20 minutes. Business Management 301. "You're taking classes too?" Russell looked impressed. "Every single one I can fit in," I replied, gathering my things. Freya's biggest argument was that I lacked the knowledge to run the estate. I'm making sure that when I face her again, she won't have any ammunition left. Russell stood as well, holding out his business card. "Let's meet next week. We'll need to start documenting everything." As I reached for the card, our fingers brushed briefly. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through me, and I quickly pulled away. "Thanks," I mumbled, shoving the card into my bag. "Both of you. I know this isn't exactly a normal client situation." Gregory waved off my thanks. "Normal is overrated. Besides, watching you take down your sister will be payment enough." Outside, the city bustled with its usual afternoon energy. As I waited for my ride share, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Freya's throwing a charity gala next month. Please come home for it. We miss you." I stared at the message, my throat tight. Below it was a photo of Mom and Freya at our family estate. Standing in front of the rose garden Dad had lovingly tended for years. The roses were wilting now, their care clearly neglected. Another text came through, this time from Russell. Forgot to mention, those charity galas are perfect for gathering intel. Might be worth making an appearance. I smiled, typing back, already got my invitation. The rideshare pulled up, and as I settled into the back seat, I pulled out my tablet to review my class notes. Every formula I memorized, every concept I mastered, was another step closer to taking back what was mine. Freya thought she'd won by forcing me to leave, but she'd actually given me exactly what I needed, the freedom to become someone she'd never see coming. The sister she'd dismissed as irresponsible was gone. In her place was someone much more dangerous, someone with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. The country club's bathroom wasn't where I'd expected to find my first real breakthrough. But there I was, reapplying lipstick, when Callie stumbled in, clearly 3 glasses of champagne past her limit. "Olive," she caught herself on the marble counter. "I didn't know you'd be at the gala." I capped my lipstick, watching her in the mirror. Mom invited me. Couldn't miss another one of Freya's famous charity events, could I? Callie's perfectly made-up face crumpled slightly. God, these events. Do you know how exhausting it is, keeping up with all the lies? Lies. I turned to face her, keeping my voice casual. "What do you mean?" She glanced around the empty bathroom, lowering her voice. "The donations, the numbers, nothing adds up anymore. Freya keeps saying everything's fine. But," she hiccuped, "last week, she asked me to help her move some money around. Said it was normal business practice, but it felt wrong." Before I could press further, the bathroom door swung open. Freya stood there, her designer dress practically radiating artificial perfection. "Callie, darling," Freya's voice could have frozen hell over. "The mayor's asking for you." Callie straightened up, her moment of honesty vanishing behind a practiced smile. As she wobbled out, Freya turned to me. "Enjoying the party, little sister?" "Immensely," I replied, pulling out my phone. "Just documenting all the wonderful charitable work you're doing." Her eyes narrowed at my phone. "Still bitter, I see. You know, Mom's worried about you, living alone in the city, working yourself to death with all those classes." "Is she? Funny how she never mentions that in our weekly calls." Freya's perfect smile faltered for a split second. "You talk to Mom weekly?" "Oh, yes. We've gotten quite close lately. Amazing what honest communication can do for a relationship." Outside the bathroom, the string quartet started playing one of Dad's favorite songs. Freya's face softened for a moment, showing a glimpse of genuine emotion. "Dad would have loved this," she said quietly. "Would he?" I challenged. "Would he have loved watching you run his company into the ground, with reckless expansions and mismanaged funds?" The softness vanished. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? The third quarter reports tell an interesting story, Freya. So do the whispers I'm hearing about bounced checks and delayed payments." She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. "Stay out of this, Olive. You gave up your right to question my decisions when you left." "When I left," I yanked my arm free. "You mean when you forced me out? Is everything okay in here?" Mom's voice made us both jump. She stood in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Everything's fine, Mom," Freya said smoothly. "Olive was just leaving, weren't you?" I looked at Mom, seeing the conflict in her eyes. "Actually, I'd love to stay and chat about the company's financial reports." "Mom, did you know about the—" "Mom doesn't need to worry about boring financial details," Freya cut in sharply. "She trusts me to handle everything." Mom wrung her hands. "Freya's right, honey. She knows what she's doing. The expansion plans they're going well, aren't they, Freya?" "Of course they are," Freya assured her. "Everything's perfect." I pulled out Russell's business card and held it out to Mom. "When you're ready to know the truth, call this number. He's a lawyer who specializes in corporate fraud." "That's enough." Freya snatched the card from my hand and tore it in half. "Mom, go back to the party. I need to talk to my sister alone." But Mom didn't move. She stared at the torn card on the floor, then at Freya's flushed face, then at me. "Fraud?" Mom's voice was barely a whisper. "What is she talking about, Freya?" "Nothing," Freya snapped. She's just trying to cause trouble, like always. I pulled another card from my purse. The truth will come out eventually, Freya. The only question is how much damage you'll do before it does. Leaving the card on the counter, I walked out of the bathroom, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Behind me, I heard Mom ask again, "Freya, what is going on?" My phone buzzed with a text from Russell. "Got the documents you needed. Meet tomorrow?" I smiled, typing back a quick yes. As I made my way through the glittering crowd, Freya might have won the battle for Mom's trust months ago, but watching her perfect facade crack tonight told me everything I needed to know. The war was far from over, and her defenses were beginning to crumble. Russell's office was a maze of papers when I arrived the next morning. Gregory was already there, poring over financial statements with a furrowed brow. "You're not going to believe what we found," Russell said, not even looking up from his computer. His tie was loosened, and coffee cups littered his desk. "Your sister's been busy." I dropped into the chair beside him. "Define busy." "How about 3 shell companies, 2 unauthorized loans, and 1 very interesting offshore account?" Gregory slid a folder across the desk. "She's been siphoning money from the estate for months." My hand shook as I opened the folder. "Can we prove it?" "Thanks to your drunk friend Callie last night, yes." Russell finally looked up, dark circles under his eyes, suggesting he'd been here all night. "Those transactions she mentioned, they left a trail, a messy one." "Speaking of messy," Gregory interrupted, holding up his phone. "Your sister just announced another expansion project. She's burning through capital like it's unlimited." I scanned the announcement on his phone. "This is insane. She's going to bankrupt the company at this rate." "That's not the worst part," Russell said, turning his screen toward me. "Look at the fine print on these loan documents." As I read, my blood ran cold. "She used the estate as collateral, all of it." "Everything," Russell confirmed. "The house, the land, all of it. One default, and it's gone." "But that's illegal," I protested. "She needed my signature for that kind of decision." Russell's eyes lit up. "Exactly. And here's where it gets interesting." He pulled out another document. "Look at this signature." I leaned in, studying the paper. That's not my signature." "She forged it?" "Bingo." Russell smiled for the first time that morning. "This is our way in. Forgery, fraud, unauthorized use of assets. We've got her." Gregory cleared his throat. "There's something else. Your mother called me this morning." My head snapped up. "What?" "After last night, she started asking questions, real questions. She's worried, Olive, and she should be." My phone buzzed. A text from Freya. "Family dinner tonight, non-negotiable. Don't make Mom more upset than you already have." "Perfect timing," Russell said, reading over my shoulder. "Go to dinner. Keep things civil. We need a few more days to get everything in order." "Civil?" I laughed bitterly. "With Freya, think of it as reconnaissance," Gregory suggested. "The more comfortable she feels, the more likely she is to slip up." That evening, I pulled up to our family estate. The gardens were even more neglected than before. Dad's beloved roses, almost completely dead now. Inside, the house felt different, colder somehow, despite the summer heat. "Olive," Mom rushed to hug me. "I'm so glad you came." "Of course I came." I hugged her back, noticing how thin she felt. "Where's Freya?" "In Dad's study. She practically lives in there now." I found Freya behind Dad's massive oak desk, surrounded by papers she hastily shoved into a drawer when I entered. "Well, well," she said, leaning back. "The prodigal sister returns. Cut the act, Freya. What's really going on with the company?" She stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Everything's fine, better than fine. We're expanding, growing, drowning in debt," I finished. "How long before the house of cards collapses?" "You always were dramatic." She walked around the desk. "I've got everything under control." "Like you had my signature under control." She froze. "What?" "The loan documents, Freya." "Did you really think no one would notice the forgery?" For a split second, real fear flashed across her face before she masked it with a laugh. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I pulled out my phone, showing her a photo of the document. Funny thing about forgery. It leaves traces. Dinner's ready, Mom called from downstairs. Freya gripped the desk, knuckles white. What do you want? I want what's mine, what Dad wanted me to have. You'll never prove anything, she hissed. And even if you could, you'd destroy Mom in the process. Is that what you want? I headed for the door, pausing in the doorway. You know what's interesting about karma, Freya? It doesn't care about what we want. It only cares about what we deserve. As we sat down to dinner, I watched Freya's hands shake as she lifted her wine glass. She was scared now, and she should be, because tomorrow, Russell would file the first round of papers, and her carefully constructed world would begin to crumble. Mom passed the salad, oblivious to the tension. Isn't this nice? Both my girls home again? I smiled, taking the bowl. Yes, Mom, it's exactly where I need to be. The morning sun streamed through the estate's windows as I walked into Dad's study, where Freya was frantically shredding documents. She looked up, mascara smeared under her eyes. You actually did it, she snarled, waving a legal notice. You're suing me. Not just suing, I replied, closing the door behind me. The police are involved now. Fraud tends to interest them. She slammed the shredder off. You have no idea what you're doing. I built this company up. Built it up? I laughed. You've been destroying it. Look at this. I grabbed a financial report from her desk. 3 missed loan payments. 2 vendors threatening legal action. The expansion projects are hemorrhaging money. I can fix it. She grabbed the paper from my hands. I just need more time. Time for what? To forge more documents? Empty more accounts? The study door creaked open, and Mom stepped in. Neither of us had heard her approach. Is it true? Mom's voice was barely audible. The things they're saying on the news. Freya rushed to her. Mom, don't listen to them. It's all lies. Stop it, I snapped. Just stop lying. Show her the real numbers, Freya. Show her what you've done to Dad's legacy. Mom picked up one of the scattered papers, her hands trembling. These loans. You said they were small business loans. But this is. She looked up, tears in her eyes. You mortgaged everything? I had to. Freya's composure cracked. The initial expansions weren't working. I needed more capital. So you forged my signature? I stepped closer, emptied the trust accounts, created fake charity events to launder money. Charity events. Mom sank into Dad's old leather chair. The Children's Hospital Fund? Freya's face went pale. Mom, I can explain. Explain what? I pulled out my phone, showing them the evidence Russell had compiled. How you pocketed donations, how you've been living off stolen money while the company crumbles. I deserved it, Freya screamed, making us both jump. I was always the responsible one, the one who stayed. While you got to run around Europe, finding yourself, I was here, learning the business. Learning, I scoffed. You were schmoozing and playing politics. I actually studied finance, learned investment strategies. Girls, please. Mom's voice cracked. Your father, Dad would be ashamed, I said quietly. Of both of us. We should have worked together, Freya. That's what he wanted. Freya's laugh was hollow. Work together? You never wanted that. You just wanted your share without earning it. And what did you earn? I gestured around the study. The right to destroy everything he built? To steal from charities? To risk our family home? A knock at the door made us all turn. Russell stood there with 2 police officers. Ms. Freya. One officer stepped forward. We have some questions about certain financial discrepancies. Freya straightened her spine, her mask slipping back into place. My lawyers will handle any questions. Your lawyers dropped you this morning, Russell said, holding up his phone. Something about not wanting to be associated with fraud charges. Mom stood up suddenly. Wait, there must be something we can do. Some way to fix this without. It's too late, Mom, I said gently. The auditors are already here. The board members are calling for a full investigation. Freya's face contorted with rage. You planned this, all of it. The classes, the meetings with lawyers. You've been plotting against me this whole time. No, Freya. I've been preparing to save our family's company from you. The officers moved forward, but Freya held up a hand. Fine. You want the truth? Here it is. She turned to Mom. I took everything. The money, the donations, all of it. Because I could. Because no one was watching. Because perfect, responsible Freya would never do such things. Right? Mom covered her mouth, stifling a sob. And you know what else? Freya continued, her voice rising hysterically. Dad knew. He knew I wasn't ready to run the company. That's why he left it to both of us. But I couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand sharing with perfect little Olive, who always got away with everything. Ma'am, one officer said firmly, we need you to come with us. As they led Freya out, she turned back one last time. I hope you're happy, little sister. You've destroyed this family. No, Freya, I replied, watching her go. You did that all by yourself. Mom and I stood in silence as Freya's heels clicked down the hallway, each step echoing through the house like a final countdown. The empire she'd built on lies was crumbling, but beneath the rubble, our family's true legacy remained. Now came the hard part, rebuilding everything she'd torn down. The boardroom felt like a war zone. Angry investors, concerned board members, and a team of forensic accountants all talked over each other while I stood at the head of the table, my father's old position. The total losses are approaching $8 million, one accountant announced, sliding reports across the table. And that's just what we've uncovered so far. How did no one notice? Demanded Mr. Patterson, our longest-serving board member. Where were the oversight committees? Callie, sitting in the corner, raised her hand timidly. Freya had us all submit false reports. She said it was standard practice for tax purposes. And you believed her? Someone scoffed. Enough, I cut in. Pointing fingers won't solve anything. We need solutions. Russell stood up, straightening his tie. We've managed to freeze the offshore accounts. Some funds can be recovered. The real issue is the expansion projects. They're bleeding us dry, Gregory added, pulling up a spreadsheet on the projector. We need to shut them down immediately. But the contracts, someone started, are void, Russell interrupted. They were signed under fraudulent circumstances. We can legally terminate them. The door burst open, and Mom walked in, looking more determined than I'd seen her in months. I've just come from the bank. I'm selling my vacation house to help cover the immediate debts. Mom, no, I protested. You don't have to. Yes, I do, she said firmly. I let this happen. I trusted blindly when I should have asked questions. Let me help fix it. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. That's admirable, but it won't be enough. We need… Actually, Gregory interrupted. I have some investors interested in helping. They've worked with Olive in some of her recent projects. They're impressed with her financial acumen. I felt all eyes turn to me. The company can be saved, I said, pulling up my own presentation. But we need to act fast and be transparent about everything. For the next hour, I laid out my plan. Cost-cutting measures, restructuring proposals, and most importantly, a complete overhaul of our financial oversight systems. As I spoke, I could see the tension in the room slowly shifting to cautious hope. This could work, Mr. Patterson finally said, but we'll need someone we trust in charge, someone who understands both the business and the family legacy. Before anyone could respond, Callie stood up. I need to say something. Her voice shook. There's more. About Freya. The room fell silent. Callie swallowed hard. She didn't just take company money. She's been blackmailing people, board members, investors, anyone who questioned her. She has files. Where? I demanded. Hidden drive in her personal laptop, password protected. But she pulled out a USB drive. I made a copy, last week, before everything. Russell took the drive. This could help with the criminal case. And explain why nobody stopped her sooner, Gregory added. My phone buzzed. A text from the prison, where Freya was being held, awaiting bail. Your perfect plan worked. Happy now, but remember, little sister, I know secrets too. about everyone, including you. I showed the message to Russell, who smiled grimly. Empty threats. She's done. Mrs. Carter, Mr. Patterson turned to Mom. As majority shareholder, you need to officially appoint a new CEO. Mom stood up, her voice steady. I think we all know who it should be. She turned to me. Your father always said you had his head for business. I should have listened. I'll need help, I said, looking around the room. From all of you. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas. You've got it. Gregory nodded. Where do we start? First, we come clean to everyone. Employees, shareholders, the public. Then we start rebuilding, project by project. As the meeting wrapped up, Mom pulled me aside. I found this in your father's study. She handed me an old envelope. It's dated the week before he died. Inside was a letter, Dad's familiar handwriting slightly shaky. My dear Olive, if you're reading this, things have probably gone wrong. I knew Freya wasn't ready, but I hoped, well, hope isn't enough in business. You have what it takes, the patience to learn, the wisdom to ask for help, and the strength to make hard decisions. The company is yours to save, if you choose to. Love, Dad. I folded the letter carefully as Russell approached. Ready for tomorrow's press conference? Ready, I nodded, tucking the letter into my jacket pocket. Time to tell the world exactly what happened here. And Freya? She'll face justice, I said, watching the last board members file out. But right now, we have a company to save and a legacy to rebuild. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Freya strode in. Designer suit, pristine, despite her circumstances. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, but she waved him off, eyes fixed on me with burning intensity. All rise, the bailiff called out. I gripped Russell's hand under the table before letting go. He'd become more than just my lawyer over these past months, but today wasn't about us. Today was about justice. The state versus Freya on multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and forgery, the judge announced. How does the defendant plead? Freya stood, chin high. Not guilty, Your Honor. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana, approached the bench. Your Honor, the state will prove that the defendant systematically defrauded her family's company, embezzled charitable donations, and forged documents to cover her tracks. For hours, witness after witness took the stand. Callie, trembling but determined, detailed years of financial manipulation. Board members described Freya's threats and blackmail. Forensic accountants mapped out the complex web of fraud. Then it was my turn. Ms. Olive, Diana began. When did you first suspect your sister's activities? The day of our father's funeral, I replied, my voice steady. When she announced she was taking control of everything. Objection, Freya's lawyer called out. Relevance. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. I described the months of investigation, the discovery of forged documents, the offshore accounts. As I spoke, I watched Mom in the gallery, tears streaming down her face. And this document, Diana held up the loan agreement. Is this your signature? No, I said firmly. Freya forged it to secure loans using our family estate as collateral. Freya's lawyer cross-examined me aggressively, trying to paint me as a jealous sister out for revenge. But the evidence was too strong, the paper trail too clear. Then, unexpectedly, Freya stood up. I want to speak, she announced. I want to tell the truth. Her lawyer tried to stop her, but she shrugged him off and walked to the stand. The court fell silent. You want the truth? Freya's voice was razor sharp. The truth is, I did everything they're saying. Every single thing. But you know what? I did it because I could. Because everyone was so busy praising perfect little Olive, they never noticed what I was capable of. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Ms. Freya, the judge warned, you have the right to remain silent. I don't want to remain silent. She turned to face me directly. You think you've won? You think taking over the company makes you Dad's true heir? I took everything he built and turned it into my personal piggy bank. I destroyed his legacy, and that's something you can never undo. Order. The judge banged his gavel. Ms. Freya, return to your seat immediately. But Freya wasn't finished. You want to know the best part? Those charity events. The Children's Hospital Fund. All that money people donated to help sick kids. I spent it on vacations and designer clothes. And I'd do it again. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Mom collapsed into tears. Russell grabbed my hand as I started to rise, holding me back. Your Honor, Diana's voice cut through the noise. The state rests its case. The jury took less than 2 hours to reach a verdict. On all counts, the foreman announced, we find the defendant guilty. Freya stood stone-faced as the judge delivered her sentence. 15 years in prison, full restitution of stolen funds, and a lifetime ban from holding any corporate positions. As the bailiff led her away, she passed close to me. Congratulations, little sister. You've got everything you wanted. I hope you choke on it. No, Freya, I replied quietly. I never wanted this. I just wanted justice. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Russell fielded their questions while Mom and I slipped away to a quiet corner. I should have seen it, Mom whispered. All those years, I should have known. We all should have, I said, hugging her. But now we can rebuild, together. Gregory appeared through the crowd. The board's waiting. They want to make your position as CEO permanent. I looked at Mom, who nodded encouragingly. Go. Your father would be so proud. As we walked to the waiting car, Russell caught up with us. Dinner tonight? To celebrate. I smiled, feeling the weight of the past year finally lifting. Yes, but first, there's something I need to do. That evening, I stood in Dad's study, now my study, looking at his photograph on the wall. We did it, Dad. We saved your legacy. And I promise, I'll make it even stronger. The company would recover. The stolen money would be repaid. But more importantly, the truth had finally come out. Sometimes, karma doesn't just come for those who deserve it. It helps restore what was broken in the process. The autumn breeze rustled through Dad's rose garden, now restored to its former glory. I knelt beside the bushes, pruning shears in hand, just as he'd taught me. The quarterly reports are in, Russell called from the patio, tablet in hand. Profits are up 30%. The Children's Hospital Fund has been fully restored. And the expansion projects, I asked, snipping a wayward branch. All stabilized. Gregory's oversight team is keeping everything on track. The back door opened, and Mom emerged, carrying a tray of lemonade. She looked younger somehow. The weight of secrets finally lifted from her shoulders. Mail came, she said, handing me an envelope. From the prison. I recognized Freya's handwriting immediately. Unlike her previous letters, full of threats and accusations, this one felt different, lighter somehow. Dear Olive, I read aloud. I've had time to think in here. Too much time, probably. Yesterday, they let me watch the news coverage of the company's recovery. You did what I never could. You made it better, stronger. Dad would have. I paused, swallowing hard. Dad would have been proud. Russell sat beside me on the garden bench. Are you going to respond? I don't know, I admitted, folding the letter. Some wounds take longer to heal. Speaking of healing, Mom interjected with a knowing smile. Russell, are you staying for dinner? I'm making your favorite pot roast. He squeezed my hand. Wouldn't miss it. The sound of car tires on gravel drew our attention. Callie emerged from her vehicle, clutching a stack of papers. The last of the restitution paperwork, she announced, joining us in the garden. Every penny has been accounted for and returned to the charities. Thank you, Callie, I said sincerely, for everything. She shook her head. I should have spoken up sooner, but watching you rebuild everything, doing it the right way, it's taught me something about courage. Speaking of courage, Russell cleared his throat, suddenly looking nervous. There's something I've been meaning to ask you, Olive. Before he could continue, Gregory's car pulled up. He practically ran to the garden, waving a document. The board just unanimously approved your proposal, he exclaimed. The Scholarship Foundation for Business Ethics. They love it. I smiled, thinking of Dad. The Redemption Scholarship. For students who understand that success isn't just about profit margins. Your father would have loved that name, Mom said softly, wiping a tear. Actually, I stood up, addressing everyone. There's something else we need to discuss. I've been thinking about the company's future. Russell raised an eyebrow. More changes. More like evolution. We're not just going to be about business anymore. I want to create a mentorship program, helping young entrepreneurs learn ethical business practices. Show them that success and integrity aren't mutually exclusive. That's brilliant, Gregory nodded. A way to prevent another Freya situation. And speaking of prevention, Russell finally managed to pull out a small velvet box from his pocket. I was wondering if you'd be interested in a different kind of partnership. The garden fell silent. Mom's hands flew to her mouth. Callie squealed. Really? I laughed. You're doing this now, in the middle of a business discussion. Well, he grinned. You're always saying we should merge our assets. Oh my God, that was terrible, I groaned. But I was smiling. Yes, of course, yes. As Russell slipped the ring on my finger, I caught sight of Dad's roses swaying in the breeze. They were blooming again, stronger than ever. So, Gregory cleared his throat, clearly emotional but trying to hide it, about that mentorship program. Right. I straightened up, still grinning. Let's go inside and discuss it. Mom's pot roast is waiting, and we've got work to do. As everyone headed inside, I lingered in the garden for a moment. The estate felt alive again, filled with purpose and hope. Freya's letter crinkled in my pocket, a reminder of how far we'd come and how far we still could go. Coming, Russell called from the patio. Yes, I said, taking one last look at the roses. You know what, Dad? I whispered to the garden. I think we did okay, better than okay. Inside, I could hear laughter and conversation. The sounds of family and future plans mingling together. The company wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving, guided by principles stronger than profit margins. And maybe someday, when the wounds had healed enough, there would even be room for forgiveness. But for now, there was dinner to eat, plans to make, and a future to build. The right way this time. After all, isn't that what karma is really about? Not just punishment, but restoration. Making things right again, one choice at a time.